So delighted to be here at the Aspen Ideas Climate and to share the stage in just a moment with America's weatherman, Al Roker. You know, Al, I don't know if you can hear me, but in all your decades of forecasting, he's really opened our eyes, our country's eyes, to the chaos and the ruin of extreme weather, and including the fact that just last year, America experienced the largest number of extreme weather events on record, again, this time 28, and the trajectory keeps getting worse. As you're probably aware, more events every year, more money spent after the fact to clean up after years of inaction. This is an example. In the 1980s, these massive disasters cost the U.S. on average about $21 billion a year. In the 1990s, it was $33 billion a year, and last year it was $100 billion, just close shy of $100 billion. So, I don't have to tell you all are completely savvy about all of this and the trajectory of these, but sometimes, in addition to speaking with our hearts, sometimes it is good to have a bit of data to be able to share with others who may not put it all together and in context. And in the heartbreak of these disasters, I've actually seen up close in my job as Energy Secretary last August in Maui. You all are familiar with the brush fire that the upcountry sparked in Hawaii, while another fire in Lahaina, which was fueled, of course, by hurricane winds and record dry weather, scorched the earth. They consumed the island. Cars with melted glass and melted tires and melted windows and gnarled pieces on the ground. People who had to flee from their homes within minutes. The fire burning so quickly that people had to literally run into the sea to get away from it. And when I was there and met with survivors, my counterparts from FEMA told me that the fires burned so hot that search and rescue teams could only go for 20 minutes at a time because their shoes would melt. Then there's Puerto Rico, an ocean away. Here you see a picture of me. This is in the Puerto Rican city of Bayamon. There is a small household, 3 generations living there, a gentle elderly grandmother who's wheelchair bound. There you see the daughter, who is a cancer patient, and in the next room is her 20-year-old grandson who has cerebral palsy, and he's attached to a breathing machine. And each time the island is battered by a storm, they pray that their electricity stays on. The PTSD on the island of Puerto Rico is real. Storms mean life and death. Rising sea levels, obviously stronger hurricane means worse storm surges, and it puts the grid in more jeopardy. They have a terrible grid, and it's getting worse all the time, even though we're investing to try to rebuild the grid and put 100% renewable energy on the rooftops of every single house that we possibly can in Puerto Rico, including with storage. But in Puerto Rico, power means more than life, means more than lights, it means life. And we see this as well everywhere. I mean, you see it in Florida clearly. It's a familiar story in Miami Beach, where folks are asking themselves these questions, is my home high enough to be able to escape this? How much am I willing to pay for property insurance? Will the places where I grew up, the schools I went to, the parks I played in, the grocery stores we shopped at, they'll still be standing even in 15 years? In fact, there was a study that was recently out that showed that 60% of Miami is going to be underwater by 2060 if we do not get our act together. So, as Energy Secretary, I travel to these places, and I'm honored to do so on behalf of the President of the United States, because he recognizes the threat of climate change. And I want to let that sink in for a second, because that's no guarantee in a president. Joe Biden sees the threat of climate change, and he has done more about it than any American president ever has. You know this, he's enacted the biggest climate laws in American history, laws that create energy, laws that offer unprecedented grants and loans and tax credits that make it irresistible for companies to produce solar and wind and manufacture EVs and batteries and generate nuclear power and clean hydrogen. 3 years into this administration, I come to report that for all you policy nerds out there, you gotta love it, because the strategy is working. Because of these actions, we are on a path to saving our planet. Just let's take solar, for example. Last year, America built and produced the most solar energy in our history. To put that in context, we produced enough solar power to power all of the University of Miami campuses for more than 853 years. Or put another way, we built enough power for 13 Hoover dams worth of power just last year. And that is because companies took us up on our incentives and announced 109 new and expanded solar manufacturing plants across America. Consumers took us up on our incentives to install solar on their homes. This is happening all across America. Consider wind. Last year, the US produced enough wind to power, another Florida example, Disney's entire electricity needs 215 times over. And then if you consider wind and solar, this year, for the first time in American history, we expect energy from wind and solar to outpace coal generation. Yes! And you know, the good news keeps on rolling in with EVs. In 2023, Americans smashed the record by buying 1.4 million EVs. Sales have quadrupled under the president's term. And, you know, by our estimates, up to 65% of new cars sold will be electric by 2030. If you look at nuclear, it's for the first time in decades, new nuclear units have come online in the US. Together, Vogtle 3 and 4 are going to generate enough clean energy equivalent to power 1 million Florida homes and businesses every year. Clean hydrogen, you can see on this chart, there's more hydrogen electrolyzers coming down the pike than ever before. Electrolyzers means green hydrogen. Last fall, the president announced $7 billion to create 7 clean hydrogen hubs, full ecosystems of producers and consumers and connective infrastructure. That chart doesn't even include those hubs. And by replacing natural gas and diesel, these hubs are going to slash 25 million metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions every year, more than 7 years of carbon emissions from the city of Miami, for example. Add it all up, and you get a clean energy revolution. By 2030, we're on pace to double clean electricity. 80% of our electricity will be clean. We're on pace to cut emissions for sure by 40% because of Bill and Ira, and then 50% with additional action by state and local and other partners. We're on pace to prevent up to 18,000 deaths from air pollution, 118,000 asthma attacks. I mean, think about it. I mean, that family in Bayamon, real life consequences for real people. But, of course, the job is not done. The red shaded area on this graph shows where America would be without the president's climate laws. The green shows where we will be because of them. And then check out the blue. The blue shows where we need to be if we're going to hit net zero emissions by 2050. we've got to add 2,000 gigawatts of clean energy and storage capacity to the grid. That's almost double the total generation capacity that we've got right now. We've got to build new transmission lines at twice our current speed. We've got to do advanced reconductoring and grid enhancing technologies. We've got to strengthen our partnerships both here and abroad. We've got to share technology. We've got to hold each other accountable to our goals. And, you know, if you look at the blue, you'll see that these things are within our grasp. It is not a given. We have to work like heck. We have to adopt more policy. But it is possible. And, you know, this is where we're going to be if we roll our progress back. So we are at a moment. We are at this incredible point. We do not want to be undoing 3 years, not just 3 years really, but decades of work by the people in this room, people that have moved us forward, people, thank you, who helped the president to pass his climate laws. I know that there are so many in this place who have made this possible. And sometimes when you are in the middle of history, of a history-making moment, sometimes it's hard to tell because you're in the middle of it. But when you look back, this is going to be the moment that decided it all. America has never had the tools or the money that it does today to take on climate change. So join us. Join us. If you're an activist, help us protect these landmark climate laws. If you're an investor, help us fund this clean energy revolution. If you're a graduate, join the American Climate Corps. Help lead our country's climate workforce. If you're an American who gives a damn about the fate of this planet, our one and only shared home, come and join this fight. There's this old parable prayer about a man who goes before God, is passed away, and God says to him at the pearly gates, show me your wounds, your scars. And if he has no scars, God says, was there nothing worth fighting for? At the end of the day, may we all bear the scars of this, the most important fight in the history of the world. Thank you so much.